Welcome back to G Street Fabric's Bernina Guide class. This is part 2 of how to set up for embroidery on the 7 Series machines. By now you would have learned how to prepare your machine for embroidery with the proper accessories and put together a motif and lettering design. Now, we'll continue this tutorial on how to prep your fabric and hoop for embroidery. Let's begin with these two items. We have the yellow or gold high tension bobbin case and a fully wound bobbin. We usually go for the same color thread as the fabric color we are embroidering on. We've already prepared our fabric here, a piece of quilting cotton about 2 to 1 inches larger than the oval hoop, and a tearaway stabilizer that's the same size as the fabric. This will be temporarily fixed onto the back of your quilting cotton using a 505 spray. We've marked the center of the fabric piece to help us mount it at the center of the hoop. Let's take the oval hoop here. We have 3 parts of the hoop: the outer hoop that latches onto the module arm, the inner hoop that secures the fabric, and the clear removable template sheet. Let's separate these for now. Let's take a look at the markings on the hoop. You'll notice little triangle marks on the outer and inner hoop. These are the arrow points that need to face one another when you assemble your hoop. We have an optional accessory here called the Master Hooper. It helps anchor down your hoop steady as you're assembling your pieces. Press the attaching mechanisms together and press down onto the bracket of the Master Hooper. Make sure your lock is released by unscrewing it. Take your fabric and sandwich it in between the outer and inner hoops. Use the template to align the center of your marked fabric. Then, pick up your fabric and inner hoop, line it up, then press down to the outer hoop to secure. As you can see, our Master Hooper is doing an excellent job at staying put as we try to press both hoops into one another. And once it's put together, we'll tighten the screw, the locking mechanism, just about halfway for now, and then release the hoop off of the Master Hooper to check our hooping. So we've centered our fabric quite nicely over here. Let's just see how well we've put this together by checking the back as well. It's nice and flat. We also recommend pushing the inner hoop just a hair back from the outer hoop, just so that the outer hoop doesn't scratch the stainless steel surface of your machine as it moves along when it stitches out. So just a hair. So we're pretty satisfied with that. Let's bring it down here and tighten the lock all the way. And we're ready to bring this to the machine. But first, assemble your bobbin case. We're using the high tension bobbin case. You can, however, use the black regular tension bobbin case for embroidering as well. The result will be just as fine, but the gold bobbin case is recommended for embroidery where both the back and front will be visible. Place your bobbin case into the machine, cut the thread using the thread cutter to the side, then shut the door. Use the multiple spool holder to place your spool on, or the horizontal spool pin, And on the 7 series, you can also use a vertical spool pin. But for this tutorial, we're going to use our multiple spool holder. Place the spool into one of the pins, loop your thread to the top of the telescope thread guide, then to the bottom guide. Continue threading as you would in sewing mode. Let's look at where we left off after putting together our design from part 1. On the bottom left-hand side corner, you'll see a timestamp and a set of dimensions. The time above is the estimated total stitch time in relation to the speed that you have currently set to. This does not include the time it takes to change the threads, however. The bottom numbers are the stitch area dimensions. Right now it's in centimeters, and this can be changed into inches through the settings menu when you click through the home icon. Right, we're finally ready to stitch out our design. Select the needle icon, which can be found at the bottom right side of your screen. Your module will calibrate a bit and then ask you to place your hoop on the arm of the embroidery module. Just follow the animated instructions on your screen and click confirm. Our screen is now telling us to place the hoop into the embroidery module arm. So we'll carefully slide the hoop under the embroidery foot with the foot raised, making sure the attaching mechanism is to the left and your fabric is right side up. Press both attaching mechanisms of the hoop towards each other, then place the side of the hoop above the bracket of the arm. Press the hoop down until it clicks in position and then release. Okay, tap the green check mark on the screen to confirm. The arm will move the hoop and the needle will hover over where the first stitch will take place on the fabric. Back to the screen, we're now viewing the stitch out mode. You'll see the start and stitch button is flashing in green, signifying that it's ready to embroider. But before we stitch, there's a new set of icons on this column here that we'd like to show you first. The first icon is the basting stitch. Say you have a fabric that needs further reinforcement to stay in place as you stitch out. There are two options for this. This function could base around the area of your design, or if you click on the same icon once more, the furthest stitch area of your hoop will be basted. So there are two options for this. We won't be needing any of those functions, so we will disengage by clicking it again. The second icon is the Move Hoop function. This allows you to further adjust the placement of your design within the hoop. This is a great way to double check your placement before stitch out of your embroidery design. The third icon down is called Trace. This function is very helpful in an event when your bobbin thread runs out, for example. Instead of continuing where the last stitch was placed, you can go back one or more stitches back so that you don't have a gap in your embroidery. The multifunction knobs allow you to trace the stitches back or forth. The top knob will trace one step at a time, while the bottom knob traces every 50 stitches backwards or forwards. The fourth icon down is the Cut Jump Stitches function. Right now it's engaged and is usually automatically on. The next icon down, with the aid of the Call for Help feature, it'll tell us what this function does. In order to activate it, click on the question mark on the side of your screen. A blue question mark will appear, and then click the icon that you have a query on, and there you'll have an explanation on what that feature does. You can exit it by closing the screen using the X in the corner. Back to the single or multicolor motif button. With this, you can choose to stitch out your design using one thread color only. The machine will continue stitching to the next layer without stopping in between the thread changes. If you'd like to preview the actual colors of your stitch out, head towards the thread color chart window over here. Currently, it shows us 2 thread changes. We have the outer border in a white and the text in black. Through here, you can select the thread brand and color number according to your design to preview the colors of your embroidery. Just click on the circular arrows icon, then choose your thread colors. This part of the process is optional. However, if you are stitching out more than 2 thread changes, it can help keep track of your process. Since we're actually only using 2 thread changes, we don't think it's necessary to change this for our stitch out. Back to the Ready to Embroider screen, you'll see our layers shown here. First layer to stitch out is the round border, but if you click on the arrow down, you can choose to skip this layer to start embroidering with the next layer, which is the text. But we would like to start with the first layer for stitch out, so press the arrow up to return. Okay, let's get this started. Our first thread color is threaded. Our security settings have been set. We're using the number 26 foot and the 0mm stitch plate. All we need to do is press start. We recommend allowing the machine to stitch 3 to 5 stitches first, then stop to cut the thread tails. This will prevent the thread tails from being embroidered on. Use clippers or a small pair of scissors to get as close as possible to the edge, then continue stitching. So while the machine is stitching, there are some important information on screen. You'll see 2 new bars appear here. These are your progress bars. The top one is the current stitch count number against the total number of stitches of the design. The lower bar indicates the stitch count of the current layer only, so this will fill out much quicker than the top bar. Beside these bars on the left are estimated times for completion, either for the current layer that's being stitched out or the total design stitch out time. And on the other side, you'll see a bunny icon, which you can activate to jump to the maximum speed for stitch out. We don't always recommend this because at times a faster stitch out doesn't necessarily mean quality stitches. Depending on your design, if you are embroidering satin stitches, for example, we would set it to the highest speed of medium to high medium only. But if we were stitching out with single line stitches only, then using the highest possible speed could do just as well. Next to the bunny icon is an icon that appeared earlier before we pressed the start stitching button, and that is the single/multicolor feature, where you can choose to stitch out without any thread color changes. But for this tutorial, we are using another color thread, so we're going to remove the yellow thread off our machine and thread the second color, which is this purple color here, and continue stitching the second layer of our design. Then, once the stitch out is complete, click on the checkered finish flag icon and carefully remove your hoop from the machine. Then remove the fabric from the hoop by unscrewing the lock to release it. Thank you for watching this tutorial. We hope you've learned a little bit more about your 7 series sewing machine. Till next time, happy sewing!